Hey guys, so I've just unwrapped the bearing that I'm going to be using for my dome rotation. Now, after doing some reading and looking at other people's experiences with these bearings, I didn't expect it to be super smooth or anything right away. But I'm actually quite surprised at how rough it feels. So anyway, I'm going to prepare it for use, and if you've never done this, if you've never cleaned up a Rockler bearing, good news, either have I, so we're going to do it together. To start with, we need to disassemble the bearing by removing the plug and dumping out most of the balls. Once most of the balls are out, we just lift the inner race a bit and the bearing comes apart and we can gather the remaining balls. The plastic feet will need to be removed, so I'm going to take care of that now as well. And then all the sticky lube needs to be removed. I used Varsol on a rag and it worked well. Okay, so I've disassembled the bearing and I got a good look at the race. And I have to say that I was quite surprised at just how rough it was in there. So I did some wet sanding to take care of the worst of it. I started with 320 grit and I went down to 1000. Then I did the first pass with a coarse polishing compound with a fabric wheel on my Dremel. Then I put the plug back in and I took a look at how it sat in the groove. And again, I was quite surprised to find a pretty significant ridge where the plug actually protruded into the race for the balls. So I removed it and I hit it lightly with a file just to take off the most obvious ridge. I'll do a little bit of quick sanding on it and I'm going to reinstall it, have a look at how it sits, and then maybe do a little bit more light sanding with it actually installed into the bearing. Then the next steps are going to be to go back and do a couple more passes with the coarse polishing compound just to cut a little bit more of the high spots down. And then I'll go through and do progressively finer and finer compounds to get it polished pretty nice. Now, even after the little bit of polishing I've done now, I can see that there's actually some fairly deep divots in there. And in order to take those out, I'd have to be removing way too much material. So I'm not gonna get all of that roughness out of there. All I'm really doing is just knocking down the high spots and trying to make the balls roll a little bit nicer. When I'm doing this polishing, I'm applying the compound to my polishing wheel, which I use to do the initial cutting. Then I follow that with a clean rag. I'll repeat this through 3 grades of compound, and I'll run a ball across the race from time to time to check how it's working. For my mounting, I need to drill through holes in the outer race, and I'll get this done now while the bearing is apart. I drill pilot holes through the existing holes where the feet were mounted. Then I flip the race over and I drill the proper sized holes from the other side. These holes need to be countersunk as well, so I set my drill press up to the proper depth and I took care of that as well. Then I clean both races really well with a clean rag and some solvent before adding a coat of light lithium grease to both sides and reassembling the bearing. Okay, so after doing that work, I can absolutely feel the difference. It's definitely smoother. I don't feel any actual rough spots anywhere as I spin it by hand. Now, it's not free spinning or spinning really fast, but my army of high-paid engineers assure me that that's not really what I should be going for anyway. It does definitely feel nice and smooth, and it was an improvement. I can always remove it later on and have another go at it if I think it's necessary. In the meantime, I'm going to carry on with getting this installed and working out how I'm going to be actually rotating the dome. And as always, if you like these videos, I'd really appreciate it if you smash that subscribe button. See you next time.